Today, we're going to talk about a future that might be a whole lot closer than any of us think. A world where justice isn't handed down by a human judge, but by a machine. So, what happens when an algorithm holds the gavel? Let's get into it.
Seriously, just take a second and let that sink in. This isn't a sci-fi movie plot. We're talking about a real possibility. Your freedom, your future, everything hanging in the balance, decided not by a person, but by lines of code. Picture this. You walk into a courtroom, let's say in Arizona. Now, why Arizona? Well, the state's got a real track record for being a testing ground for new tech, everything from self-driving cars to automating government jobs. So it's not a huge leap to imagine it being the first place to try a real AI judge. There's no jury, no person in a black robe sitting up high, just a screen. Okay, so as futuristic and kind of wild as that scene sounds, here is the most important thing to understand. The building blocks for an AI judge, they're not science fiction. They are already being used in courtrooms all across the United States. Today, right now. The key piece of this whole puzzle is something called a risk assessment algorithm. To put it simply, it's a program that chews on a bunch of data about a defendant and then spits out a score, a prediction of what they might do in the future. And you better believe that score can have absolutely massive consequences. Let's look at two real-world examples. First up, there's a system called Compass. It's used to predict the risk that someone will reoffend, and that prediction helps decide sentencing and parole for literally thousands of people. But, and this is a big but, it's been slammed for potential racial bias. Then you have another one, PSA, which helps judges decide on bail. It says it's race neutral, but nobody can really see how it works, and that lack of transparency is a huge red flag. These are not just experiments, they're actively shaping people's lives every single day. And that brings us to the core of the problem, right? We have this idea that machines are objective, that they could give us perfect justice, free from all our messy human flaws. But that assumption, well, it's a really dangerous illusion. This quote right here gets to the heart of it. An AI learns from the data we feed it. It's that simple. So if our historical crime data is packed with decades of human bias, the AI doesn't magically fix it. Nope. It just learns that bias, and then it launders it into a system that looks shiny and impartial on the surface. And this is how that bias gets locked in and automated. It's a vicious cycle. Step 1. The AI predicts a hotspot based on that biased historical data. Step 2. More police are sent to that neighborhood. Step 3, well, with more police, you get more arrests. And finally, step 4, those new arrest numbers get fed right back into the system, which then says, see, I was right. It is a hotspot. The bias just keeps reinforcing itself again and again. And on top of all the bias, you've got the black box problem. With a lot of these really complex AIs, even the people who made them can't tell you exactly why it made a specific decision. So think about that. How are you supposed to defend yourself against a verdict when nobody can even explain the logic behind it? It raises these huge constitutional questions about the right to due process. It's so easy to get lost in the tech talk here, but we can't forget what's actually at stake. We have to look past the algorithms and the data and focus on the real-world human consequences. I mean, we're not talking about data points. We're talking about people. Defendants whose freedom literally depends on a score they can't see or understand. We're talking about families torn apart because of a machine sentencing recommendation. Entire communities can be over-policed because of a predictive tool. This is the real cost of getting it wrong. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but as long as you have a human judge making the final call, it's fine, right? Well, it's not that simple. There's a psychological principle called automation bias. Basically, we humans have this built-in tendency to trust a machine's answer, to just assume it's more objective than we are. So a judge might see a high-risk score and just go with it, even if their own gut feeling is screaming otherwise. Which leads us to what might be the single biggest roadblock to ever having an AI judge, the massive problem of accountability. See, when a human judge messes up, there's a system for that. There are appeals, there are consequences, but what happens when the code is wrong? This is the question, the one that keeps legal scholars and ethicists up at night. If an innocent person is sent to prison because of a faulty algorithm, who or what is actually at fault? Is it the company that sold the software? The government that decided to use it? The data scientists who trained the model? Or, and this is the most chilling possibility of all, does accountability just evaporate?
Does no one have to answer for the mistake? So, as we wrap this up, you can see it all really boils down to a fundamental choice, a choice between what technology promises us and what maybe only humanity can provide. On one hand, the promise is incredibly tempting: faster decisions, more consistency, maybe even less corruption. But then you look at the other side of the coin, the peril. An AI has no empathy. It can't understand context. It can have hidden catastrophic errors inside its black box. And as we've already seen, it can put historical bias on steroids instead of getting rid of it. And listen, this isn't just me saying this. The world's top experts are sounding all kinds of alarms. The American Bar Association is demanding transparency and human oversight. Researchers at places like MIT and Stanford are crystal clear. AI should be a tool to help judges, not replace them. And governments are noticing too. The European Union has already labeled this kind of tech as high risk. Ultimately, this quote just nails the entire debate perfectly. This isn't really a question about technology. It's a question about morality. It's about whether we as a society are willing to hand over one of our most sacred duties, the judgment of our fellow human beings, to a machine that has no morals of its own. And so that's the question I want to leave you with. As these systems get smarter and woven more deeply into our lives, we're all going to have to decide what our justice system should look like. Should it be built on the cold, hard logic of code, or on the messy, imperfect, but ultimately human foundation of conscience? The choice we make is going to define the future of justice itself.